Yashodanandana Vajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotra Satta Shishmaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotra Satta Shishmaris Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Prem Sako Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gauda Bhaktivedanta Ki Nidai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Would someone like to give me a Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, thank you. Well, okay. I mean, you didn't ask me to, but I brought a Krishna book just in case. Okay, so we'll be speaking from the Krishna book in the chapter Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini. So what I'd like to do is just kind of start in the middle where Krishna arrives at the actual marriage ceremony. Well, actually, no, we'll just start from the beginning. So this is chapter 53 of Krishna book, Krishna Kidnaps Rukmini. So after hearing Rukmini's statement, Lord Krishna was very much pleased. He immediately shook hands with the Brahmana and said, "My dear Brahmana, I am very glad to hear that Rukmini is eager to marry me, since I am also eager to get her hand. My mind is always absorbed in thoughts of the daughter of Bhishmaka, and sometimes I cannot sleep at night because I am thinking of her. I can understand that the marriage of Rukmini with Shishupal has been arranged by her elder brother in a spirit of animosity toward me. So I am determined to give a good lesson to all of these princes. Just as one extracts and uses fire after manipulating ordinary wood, after dealing with these demoniac princes, I shall bring forth Rukmini like fire from their midst." Krishna, upon being informed of the specific date of Rukmini's marriage, was anxious to leave immediately. He asked his driver Daruka to harness the horses for his chariot and prepare to go to the kingdom of Vidarbha. After hearing this order, the driver brought Krishna's 4 special horses. The names and descriptions of these horses are mentioned in the Padma Purana. The first one, Shaibya, was greenish. The second, Sugriva, was grayish like ice. The third, Megha Pushpa, was the color of a new cloud. And the last, Balahaka, was of ashen color. When the horses were yoked and the chariot was ready to go, Krishna helped the Brahmanas up and gave him a seat. Helped the Brahmana up and gave him a seat by his side. Immediately they started from Dwarka and within one night arrived at the province of Vidarbha. The kingdom of Dwarka is situated in the western part of India, and Vidarbha is situated in the northern part. They are separated by a distance of not less than 1,000 miles, but the horses were so fast that they reached their destination, a town called Kundina, within one night, or at most 12 hours. King Bhishmaka was not enthusiastic about handing his daughter over to Shishupal, but he was obliged to accept the marriage settlement due to his affectionate attachment for his eldest son, who had negotiated it. As a matter of duty, the king was decorating the city for the marriage ceremony and acting in great earnestness to make it very successful. Water was sprinkled all over the streets. The city was cleansed very nicely. Since India is situated in the tropical zone, the atmosphere is always dry. Dust always accumulates on the streets and roads, so they must be sprinkled with water at least once a day, and in big cities like Calcutta, twice a day. The roads of Kundina were arrayed with colored flags and festoons, and gates were constructed at particular crossings. The whole city was decorated very nicely. The beauty of the city was enhanced by the inhabitants, both men and women, who were dressed in fresh, washed clothes and decorated with sandalwood pulp, pearl necklaces, and flower garlands. Incense burned everywhere, and fragrances like agudu scented the air. Priests and brahmanas were sumptuously fed, and according to ritualistic ceremony were given sufficient wealth and cows in charity. In this way they were engaged in chanting Vedic hymns. The king's daughter Rukmini was exquisitely beautiful. She was very clean and had beautiful teeth. The auspicious sacred thread was tied on her wrist. She was given various types of jewelry to wear and long silken cloth to cover the upper and lower parts of her body. Learned priests gave her protection by chanting mantras from the Sama Veda, Rig Veda, and Yajur Veda. Then they chanted mantras from the Atharva Veda and offered oblations in the fire to pacify the influence of different stars. King Bhishmaka was experienced in dealing with brahmanas and priests when such ceremonies were held. He specifically honored the brahmanas by giving them large quantities of gold and silver, grain mixed with molasses, and cows decorated with cloth and ornaments. Dhamaghosh, Shishupal's father, executed all kinds of ritualistic performances to invoke good fortune for his son. Shishupal's father was known as Dhamaghosh due to his superior ability to cut down unregulated citizens. Dhamma means curbing down and Ghosh means famous, so he was famous for controlling the citizens. Dhamaghosh thought that if Krishna came to disturb the marriage ceremony, he would certainly cut him down with his military power. Therefore, after performing the various auspicious ceremonies, Dhamaghosh gathered his military divisions. He took many elephants and garlanded with golden necklaces and many similarly decorated chariots and horses. It appeared that Dhamaghosh, along with his son and other companions, was going to Kundina not exactly to get Shishupal married, but mainly to fight. When King Bhishmaka learned that Dhamaghosh and his party were arriving, he left the city to receive them. Outside the city gate were many gardens where guests were welcome to stay. In the Vedic system of marriage, the bride's father receives the large party of the bridegroom and accommodates them in a suitable place for 2 or 3 days until the marriage ceremony is performed. The party led by Dhamaghosh contained thousands of men. Among them, the prominent kings and personalities were Jarasandha, Dantavakra, Vidudata, Paundraka, and it was an open secret that Rukmini was meant to be married to Krishna, but that her elder brother Rukmi had arranged her marriage to Shishupal. There was also some whispering about a rumor that Rukmini had sent a messenger to Krishna. Therefore the soldiers suspected that Krishna might cause a disturbance by attempting to kidnap Rukmini. Even though they were not without fear, they were all prepared to give Krishna a good fight to prevent the girl from being taken away. Sri Balaram received the news that Krishna had left for Kundina accompanied only by a brahmana, and that Shishupal was there with a large number of soldiers. Balaram suspected that they would attack Krishna, and thus out of great affection for his brother, he took strong military divisions of chariots, infantry, horses, and elephants, and went to the precincts of Kundina. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Rukmi was expecting Krishna to arrive. And when neither he nor the brahmana who took the message appeared, he was full of anxiety and began to think how unfortunate he was. There is only one night between today and my marriage day, and still neither the Brahmana nor Shamasundar has returned. I cannot ascertain any reason for this. Having little hope, she thought that perhaps Krishna had found reason to become dissatisfied and had rejected her fair proposal. As a result, the Brahmana might have become disappointed and not come back. Although she was thinking of various causes for the delay, she expected them both at any moment. Rukmini further thought that the demigods such as Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Goddess Durga might have been displeased. It is generally said that the demigods become angry when not properly worshipped. For instance, when Indra found that the inhabitants of Vrindavan were not worshipping him, Krishna having stopped the Indra Yajna, he became angry and wanted to chastise them. Thus Rukmini thought that since she did not worship Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma very much, they might have become angry and tried to frustrate her plan. Similarly, she thought that Goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, might have taken the side of her husband. Lord Shiva is known as Rudra, and his wife is known as Rudrani. Rudrani and Rudra refer to those who are accustomed to putting others in distress, to cry forever. Rukmini was thinking of Goddess Durga as Girija, the daughter of the Himalayan mountains. The Himalayan mountains are very cold and hard, and she thought the Goddess Durga was hard-hearted and cold. In her anxiety to see Krishna, Rukmini, who was after all still a child, thought this way about the different demigods. The gopis worshipped Goddess Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. Similarly, Rukmini was thinking of the various types of demigods, not for material benefit, but in respect to Krishna. Praying to the demigods to achieve the favor of Krishna is not irregular, and Rukmini was fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Even though she pacified herself by thinking that the time for Govinda to arrive had not yet expired, Rukmini felt that she was hoping against hope. Not expressing her mind to anyone, she simply shed tears unobserved by others. And when her tears became more forceful, she closed her eyes in helplessness. While Rukmini was in such deep thought, auspicious symptoms appeared in different parts of her body. Trembling began to occur in her left eyelid, arm, and thigh. When trembling occurs in these parts of the body, it is an auspicious sign, indicating that something lucrative can be expected. Just then, Rukmini, full of anxiety, saw the Brahmana messenger. Krishna, being the supersoul of all living beings, could understand Rukmini's anxiety. Therefore, he sent the Brahmana inside the palace to let her know that he had arrived. When Rukmini saw the Brahmana, she could understand the auspicious trembling of her body and immediately became elated. She smiled and inquired whether Krishna had already come. The Brahmana replied that the son of the Yadu dynasty, Sri Krishna, had arrived. He further encouraged her by saying that Krishna had promised to carry her away without fail. Rukmini was so elated by the Brahmana's message that she wanted to give him in charity everything she possessed. However, finding nothing suitable for presentation, she simply offered him her respectful obeisances. The significance of offering respectful obeisances to a superior is that the one offering obeisances is obliged to the respected person. In other words, Rukmini implied that she would remain ever grateful to the Brahmana. Anyone who gets the favor of the goddess of fortune, as did this Brahmana, is without a doubt always happy in material opulence. When King Bhishmaka heard that Krishna and Balaram had come, he invited them to see the marriage ceremony of his daughter. Immediately he arranged to receive them, along with their soldiers, in a suitable garden house, as was the Vedic custom. The king offered Krishna and Balaram honey and fresh, washed garments. He was hospitable not only to Krishna, Balaram, and the kings such as Jarasandha, but also to many other kings and princes according to their personal strength, age, and material possessions. Out of curiosity and eagerness, the people of Kundina assembled before Krishna and Balaram to drink the nectar of their beauty. With tearful eyes, they offered Krishna and Balaram their silent respects. They were very much pleased, considering Lord Krishna the suitable match for Rukmini. They were so eager to unite Krishna and Rukmini that they prayed to the personality of Godhead, "Our dear Lord, if we have performed any pious activities with which you are satisfied, kindly be merciful upon us and accept the hand of Rukmini." It appears that Rukmini was a very popular princess, and all the citizens, out of intense love for her, prayed for her best fortune. In the meantime, Rukmini, being very nicely dressed and protected by bodyguards, came out of the palace to visit the temple of Ambika, goddess Durga. Deity worship in the temple has been in existence since the beginning of Vedic culture.
There's a class of men described in Bhagavad Gita as Veda-Vadarata. They believe that only in the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies, but not in temple worship. Such foolish people may here take note that although this marriage of Krishna and Rukmini took place more than 5,000 years ago, there were arrangements for temple worship. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, the worshippers of the demigods attain the abodes of the demigods. There are many people who worship the demigods and many who directly worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The system of demigod worship was directed mainly to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh, the sun god and goddess Durga. Lord Shiva and the goddess Durga were worshipped even by the royal families. Other minor demigods were worshipped by silly lower class people. As far as the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are concerned, they simply worship Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, the worship of the demigods is condemned, but not forbidden. There it is clearly said that less intelligent men worship the demigods for material benefit. On the other hand, even though Rukmini was the goddess of fortune, she went to the temple of goddess Durga because the family deity was worshipped there. And Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that as Rukmini proceeded from the temple of goddess Durga, within her heart she always thought of the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, when Rukmini went to the temple, it was not with the intentions of an ordinary person who goes to beg for material benefits. Her only goal was Krishna. As Rukmini proceeded towards the temple, she was silent and grave. Her mother and her girlfriends were by her side, and the wife of a Brahmana was in the center. Surrounding her were royal bodyguards. This custom of a would-be bride's going to the temple of a demigod is still practiced in India. As the procession continued, various musical sounds were heard. Conch shells, drums such as panavas, and the bugles of different sizes such as turyas and bheris combined to make a sound which was not only auspicious but very sweet to hear. Thousands of wives of respectable brahmanas were present, all dressed very nicely with suitable ornaments. They presented Rukmini with flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, and a variety of colorful garments to assist her in worshipping Lord Shiva and goddess Durga. Some of these ladies were very old and knew perfectly well how to chant prayers to goddess Durga and Lord Shiva. So, followed by Rukmini and others, they led these prayers before the deity. Rukmini offered her prayers to the deity by saying, My dear goddess Durga, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, as well as to your children. Goddess Durga has 4 famous children, 2 daughters, the goddess of fortune Lakshmi, and the goddess of learning Saraswati, and the 2 sons, Lord Ganesh and Lord Kartikeya. They are all considered demigods and goddesses. Since goddess Durga is always worshipped with her famous children, Rukmini specifically offered her respectful obeisances to the deity in that way. However, her prayers were special. Ordinary people pray to goddess Durga for material wealth, fame and profit and strength, and so on. Rukmini, however, desired to have Krishna for her husband, and therefore prayed that the deity be pleased with her and bless her with that benediction. Since she desired only Krishna, her worship of the demigods is not condemned. When Rukmini was praying, she presented a variety of items before the deity, chief of which was water, different kinds of flames, incense, garments, garlands, and various foods prepared with ghee, such as puris and kachoris. She also offered fruits, sugarcane, betel nuts, and spices. With great devotion, Rukmini offered them to the deity according to the regulative principles directed by the old Brahmana ladies. After this ritualistic ceremony, the ladies offered the remnants of the food to Rukmini as prasadam, which she accepted with great respect. Then Rukmini offered her obeisances to the ladies and to goddess Durga. After the business of deity worship was finished, Rukmini caught hold of the hand of one of her girlfriends in her own hand, which is decorated with a jeweled ring, and left the temple in the company of others. All the princes and visitors who came to Kundina for the marriage had assembled outside the temple to see Rukmini. The princes were especially eager to see her because they all actually thought that they would have Rukmini as their wife. Struck with wonder upon seeing Rukmini, they thought she was especially manufactured by the Creator to bewilder all the chivalrous princes. Her body was well constructed, the middle portion being thin. Her high hips were adorned with a jeweled locket. She had pink lips, and the beauty of her face was enhanced by her slightly scattered hair and by different kinds of earrings. The bodily luster and beauty of Rukmini appeared as if painted by an artist, perfectly presenting beauty, following the descriptions of great poets. Rukmini's breasts are described as being somewhat high, indicating that she was just a youth, not more than 13 or 14 years old. Her beauty was specifically intended to attract the attention of Krishna. Although the princess gazed upon her beautiful features, she was not at all proud. Her eyes moved restlessly, and when she smiled very simply, like an innocent girl, her teeth appeared just like jasmine buds. Expecting Krishna to take her away at any moment, she proceeded slowly toward her home. Her legs moved just like a full-grown swan, and her ankle bells tinkled mildly. The chivalrous princes assembled there were so overwhelmed by Rukmini's beauty that they became almost unconscious and fell from their horses and elephants. Full of lust, they hopelessly desired Rukmini's hand, comparing their own beauty to hers. Srimati Rukmini, however, was not interested in any of them. In her heart, she was simply expecting Krishna to come and carry her away. As she was adjusting the ornaments on a finger of her left hand, she happened to look upon the princes and suddenly saw that Krishna was present amongst them. Although Rukmini had never before seen Krishna, she was always thinking of him. Thus she had no difficulty recognizing him among the princely order. Krishna, unconcerned with the other princes, immediately took the opportunity to place Rukmini on his chariot, marked by a flag bearing an image of Garuda. He then proceeded slowly without fear, taking Rukmini away exactly as a lion takes away a deer from the midst of jackals. Meanwhile, Balaram appeared on the scene with the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty. Jarasandha, who had many times experienced defeat by Krishna, roared, "How is this? Krishna is taking Rukmini away from us without opposition. What is the use of our being chivalrous fighters with arrows? My dear princes, just look! Look! We're losing our reputations. He is just like a jackal taking booty from a lion." Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Purports, the 53rd chapter of Krishna. Krishna kidnaps Rukmini. So there's some amazing things in this particular story. First and foremost, we see the beauty, the astonishing, incredible beauty of Srimati Rukmini Devi. Everyone can take a look. She's there. This beauty is meant for Krishna, right? And it's amazing that as she's being, first of all, Srila Prabhupada elaborates that the royal families would oftentimes worship Lord Shiva and the goddess Durga. And this was the case with Rukmini's family, and goddess Durga was her family deity. And so as she went to the temple of the goddess Durga, her only thought, however, was Krishna. In fact, always she was meditating upon Krishna, so much so that even though she had never seen Krishna, she recognized him immediately. And so she comes out of this temple, and she's surrounded by all these brahmanas. She just finished the worship. And as mentioned by Prabhupada, that the entire city of Kundina loved her. Right? She was very, very popular. So much so that when they saw Krishna, they began to pray to Krishna, "Please, you're perfect for Rukmini. Please take her hand. Marry Rukmini. We love her so much. She's so wonderful. You can make her so happy." Right? And so here she is, surrounded by this entire city, which loves her. And she's walking out very slowly. And all the princes, it's very comical. We look at these princes, they're all fools, They think that Rukmini's for them. Right? And they're all very proud of their power, their strength, their beauty, right? Sometimes you see in these Indian movies from the 80s, they're all dressed in like some kind of, gold jewelry and a big beard and big hairy chest, right? And so as soon as they see her, they become struck like, first they're talking and everything, and then, "Oh my gosh, look at her. Oh my gosh," they can't believe it, right? And they even practically falling off their elephants. They're on horseback, all proud and mighty in front of each other. And they see Rukmini, and immediately they start to actually fall down onto their knees practically. And it's funny because they start comparing her beauty to their own, right? Like, oh, she's so beautiful. As soon as they recover a little bit, it's like, wait a minute. I'm handsome too. Look at me. Look at this guy. He's not as handsome. He doesn't deserve her. Right? There's no way that you're as handsome enough to get her, nor you either. But me, just look at me. Look at my beard and look at my perfect mustache, right? She deserves me. Only I am good enough for her. Right? But Rukmini Devi, she wasn't interested in any of this. She had no interest in any other man whatsoever, or what people were thinking, or if anyone even appreciated her beauty. She was thinking that this beauty is only for Krishna. And it's very wonderful. It says that she's walking, and she knew that Krishna was going to kidnap her, and so she started walking very slowly. Like she wasn't in a hurry. She's giving Krishna plenty of opportunity. And it mentions here that she was walking as graceful as a swan. And so she's walking very beautifully, and she's thinking of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna. And then she kind of, in a very shy way, Prabhupada mentions the beauty of a woman is her shyness, right? So in a very shy way, she's kind of playing with a ring on her finger and kind of she's not looking at anyone, but then she kind of just glances up at Krishna, right? And immediately recognizes him. And then Krishna just comes in right in the middle of all these princes. No fear. And he's not even in a hurry, right? He really could care less about these princes. They're there or they're not there. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me, right? And he just kind of pulls up very slowly on his chariot, just as if this is part of the festival, or as if it's supposed to happen, And all the princes know that Krishna's coming to attack, right? In fact, it mentioned in the beginning that many of them, they were, like they didn't even come there for the marriage. They came because there's going to be a fight. Right? They all brought their armies and stuff like that. And even, Jarasandha, all these individuals who hate Krishna. And there was a conspiracy against Krishna. Everyone knew that Rukmini should marry Krishna. Even her own father wanted him to marry Krishna. And yet you had individuals like Rukmini, her brother, as well as Shishupal. They tried to somehow create an obstacle, out of envy for Krishna. And they wanted her to marry Shishupal. Can you believe it? Imagine Rukmini marrying Shishupal. It's like almost like a blasphemy, It's like putting Rukmini, the goddess of fortune, the greatest servant of Krishna. It's like making Sita marry Ravan. Really, it literally is. It's the same thing, practically. So, these demons had arranged this horrible situation, which would be inconceivable to Rukmini, and which would be greatly offensive to Krishna. And they were trying to somehow push this through and force this to happen, But Krishna had other plans. And it's interesting also that he didn't even wait for anyone. This is the chivalrous nature of Krishna. As soon as he got the letter of Rukmini, he just went to Kundina alone, which it mentions it's 1,000 miles away. He has his Shaibya and all of these wonderful horses that were able to take him very quickly. But he didn't even wait for his army. He practically didn't even tell anyone. It's like, no, I'm going alone. I'm going to go save her. Let all these princes try to stop me. Let all these rascals, they arrange this offensive marriage, trying to take Rukmini from me and give her to this demon. Let them try to stop me. I don't even need an army. I'm just going there alone, right? Get ready, And so he arrives there alone, and of course Balaram came with an army behind him. And they found out, Krishna just took off. He's going to go, and all these demons are going to try to stop him. Let's go back him up, right? So Balaram took the Yadu armies and they all marched there. And so they're following behind him. But Krishna came alone, and he came right into the midst of all of these demons, all of these poisonous individuals who hated him. And he just strolled up very nonchalantly, pulled the chariot right into the middle of all of them. And then just kind of just gently sort of took her hand and brought her onto the chariot as if he's supposed to be picking her up, at that time. And so, and all the princes were kind of aghast, like, what? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, is someone going to do something? Right? And here we see that the kings are even shouting. Jarasandha especially is like, hey, what's going on, everybody? Look what's happening right in front of us. Somebody do something. Right? Somebody stop him. And even though it's Krishna's just like a lion taking her from a bunch of jackals, he sees it the exact opposite. Right? Look at this jackal has come, and he's stealing what's meant for the lion. Right? And so in this way, he has a very perverted mentality. But this is the mentality of the demons. They're envious towards Krishna. And so we see that in this wonderful pastime that Krishna's love for Rukmini is eternal. And Rukmini's love for Krishna is eternal. In fact, they always loved each other. There's always this sort of deep connection between Krishna and his various wives and the gopis, etc. And we can see this in the previous chapters with the letter which was sent to Krishna, right? In fact, so important was this letter to Krishna that even though he was engaged in a battle, he actually left the battle. Krishna became a ranchor, right? If you remember that Krishna, he was sort of, part of his pastimes, he and Balaram were trapped on a mountaintop and he was under attack. And yet as soon as he heard, this Rukmini is pining for him and requesting him to come, immediately he left everything aside and went to go rescue her. This is Krishna. We can't conceive of the love between Rukmini and Dwarkadish. Rukmini Dwarkadish have come here in this beautiful temple. Srila Prabhupada has given us the opportunity to worship them. And they've come in this beautiful temple to give their mercy and their association to all of us. We all pray to Rukmini Dwarkadish. And when we come before them, you see they're so merciful. They're so kind. They look upon us with so much love. But today we can remember how much they love each other. Right? We can remember the great love between Rukmini and Dwarkadish and the great love that Rukmini has for Dwarkadish. And so, anyway, this is a wonderful meditation. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, even though we are fallen conditioned souls, somehow or other, we're allowed to participate, just like we're allowed to swing the deities and to somehow or other worship Rukmini Dwarkadish. So by their mercy, they are allowing us to actually associate with them and to enter into these same pastimes that we're reading here. This kidnapping between Krishna, or the Krishna kidnapping Rukmini, it's a wonderful expression of his love for Rukmini and Rukmini's love for him, but so is their appearance here on the altar. Right? Their coming before us is really that same kind of love and compassion they have for each other. It's extending to the whole universe. Okay? So should I read a little bit more? Okay. So we're going to read about Krishna defeating the princes and taking Rukmini home. So Jarasandha and all the other princes were very angry at Krishna for having kidnapped Rukmini. Struck by Rukmini's beauty, they had fallen from the backs of their horses and elephants, but now they begin to stand up and properly arm themselves. Picking up their bows and arrows, they begin to chase Krishna on their chariots, horses, and elephants. To check their progress, the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty turned and faced them. Thus terrible fighting began between the two belligerent groups. The princes opposing Krishna, who were led by Jarasandha, and who were all expert in fighting, shot their arrows at the Yadu soldiers just as a cloud splashes the face of a mountain with torrents of rain. Gathered on the face of the mountain, a cloud does not move very much, and therefore the force of rain is much more severe on a mountain than anywhere else. The opposing princes were determined to defeat Krishna and recapture Rukmini from his custody, and they fought with him as severely as possible. Rukmini, seated by the side of Krishna, saw arrows raining from the opposite party onto the faces of the Yadu soldiers. In a fearful attitude, she looked upon Krishna's face, expressing her gratefulness that he had taken such a great risk for her sake only. Her eyes moving, she appeared sorry, and Krishna, who could immediately understand her mind, encouraged her with these words, "My dear Rukmini, don't worry. Please rest assured that the soldiers of the Yadu dynasty will kill all the opposing soldiers without delay." As Krishna was speaking with Rukmini, the commanders of the Yadu dynasty soldiers, headed by Lord Balaram, who is also known as Sankarshan, as well as by Gada, not tolerating the defiant attitude of the opposing soldiers, began to strike their horses, elephants, and chariots with arrows. As the fighting progressed, the princes and soldiers of the enemy began to fall from their horses, elephants, and chariots. Within a short time, millions of severed heads, decorated with helmets and earrings, had fallen on the battlefield. The soldiers' hands were severed along with their bows and arrows and clubs. Arms were piled upon arms, thighs upon thighs, and horses upon horses. Similarly, other animals such as camels, elephants, and asses, as well as infantry soldiers, all fell with severed heads. When the enemy headed by Jarasandha found that they were gradually being defeated by the soldiers of Krishna, they thought it would be unwise to risk losing their armies in the battle for the sake of Shishupal. Shishupal himself should have fought to rescue Rukmini from the hands of Krishna, but when the soldiers saw that Shishupal was not competent to fight with Krishna, they decided not to lose their armies unnecessarily, and therefore they ceased fighting and dispersed. Some of the princes, as a matter of etiquette, appeared before Shishupal. They saw Shishupal was discouraged, like one who has lost his wife. His face appeared dried up, and he'd lost all his energy, and all the luster of his body had disappeared. They addressed Shishupal thus: "Our dear Shishupal, don't be discouraged in this way. You belong to the royal order and are the chief amongst the fighters. There is no question of distress or happiness for a person like you, because neither of these conditions is everlasting. Take courage. Don't be disappointed by this temporary reversal. After all, we are not the final actors. As puppets dance in the hand of a magician, we are all dancing by the will of the Supreme. And according to his plan alone, we suffer distress or enjoy happiness. We should therefore be equipoised in all circumstances." Although in the beginning the princes had been full of hope for success in their heroic action, after their defeat they could only try to encourage Shishupal with flattering words. Thus Shishupal, instead of marrying Rukmini, had to be satisfied with the flattering words of his friends, and he returned home in disappointment. The kings who had come to assist him, also disappointed, then returned to their respective kingdoms. The whole catastrophe of the defeat was due to the envious nature of Rukmini's eldest brother, Rukmi. Having seen his sister forcibly taken away by Krishna after he had planned to marry her to Shishupal, Rukmi was frustrated. So after Shishupal, his friends and intended brother-in-law, returned home, Rukmini, very much agitated, was determined to teach Krishna a lesson personally. He called for his own soldiers, a military phalanx consisting of several thousand elephants, horses, chariots, and infantry, and equipped with this military strength, he began to follow Krishna to Dwarka. To show his prestige, Rukmi promised all the returning kings, "You should not help Shishupal marry my sister Rukmini. You could not help Shishupal marry my sister Rukmini, but I cannot allow Rukmini to be taken away by Krishna. I shall teach him a lesson. Now I am going to follow him." He presented himself as a big commander and vowed before all the princes, "Unless I kill Krishna in the fight and bring back my sister from his clutches, I shall not return to my capital city Kundina. I make this vow before you all, and you will see that I shall fulfill it." After thus vibrating all these boasting words, Rukmi immediately got on his chariot and told his chariot driver to pursue Krishna. He said, "I want to fight with him immediately. This cowherd boy has become proud of his tricky way of fighting with Kshatriyas, but today I shall teach him a good lesson. Because he had the impudence to kidnap my sister, I, with my sharp arrows, shall teach him very good lessons indeed." Thus this unintelligent man, Rukmi, ignorant of the extent of the strength and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, voiced his impudent threats. In great stupidity, he soon stood before Krishna, telling him repeatedly, "Stop for a minute and fight with me." After saying this, he drew his bow and directly shot 3 forceful arrows against Krishna's body. Then he condemned Krishna as the most abominable descendant of the Yadu dynasty and asked him to stand before him for a minute so that he could teach him a good lesson. "You are carrying away my sister, just like a crow stealing clarified butter meant for use in a sacrifice. You are proud of your military strength, but you cannot fight according to the regulative principles. You have stolen my sister. Now I shall relieve you of your false prestige. You can keep my sister in your possession only until I beat you to the ground for good with my arrows." Lord Krishna, after hearing all these crazy words from Rukmi, immediately shot an arrow and severed the string of Rukmi's bow, making him unable to use another arrow. Rukmi immediately took another bow and shot 5 arrows at Krishna. Being attacked for the second time, Krishna again severed Rukmini's bowstring. Rukmi took a third bow and Krishna again cut its string. This time, to teach Rukmi a lesson, Krishna shot 6 arrows at him and then shot another 8 arrows, killing 4 horses with 4 arrows, killing the chariot driver with another arrow, and chopping off the upper portion of Rukmi's chariot, including the flag, with the remaining 3 arrows. Rukmi, having run out of arrows, took assistance from swords, shields, tridents, lances, and similar weapons used for fighting hand to hand, but Krishna immediately broke them all in the same way. Being repeatedly baffled in his attempts, Rukmi took his sword and ran swiftly towards Krishna, just as a fly proceeds towards a fire. But as soon as Rukmi reached Krishna, Krishna cut his weapon to pieces. This time Krishna took out his sharp sword and was about to kill him immediately, but Rukmi's sister Rukmini, understanding that this time Krishna would not excuse her brother, fell down at Krishna's lotus feet, and in a grievous tone, trembling with great fear, began to plead with her husband. Rukmini first addressed Krishna as Yogeshvara. Yogeshvara means one who is possessed of inconceivable opulence and energy. Krishna possesses inconceivable opulence and energy, whereas Rukmini's brother had only limited military potency. Krishna is immeasurable, whereas her brother was measured in every step of his life. Therefore, Rukmi was not comparable even to an insignificant insect before the unlimited power of Krishna. She also addressed Krishna as the god of the gods. There are many powerful demigods such as Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna, but Krishna is the lord of all these gods, whereas Rukmini's brother was not only an ordinary human being, but in fact the lowest of all because he had no understanding of Krishna. In other words, a human being who has no conception of the actual position of Krishna is the lowest in human society. Then Rukmini addressed Krishna as Mahabhuja, which means one who with unlimited strength. She also addressed Krishna as Jagatpati, the master of the whole cosmic manifestation. In comparison, her brother was only an ordinary prince. Okay. So as we could see, what happens is that Rukmini intercedes. And out of her kindness and compassion to her brother, Krishna, rather than killing him, he simply humiliates him. Just as we see coming up in the Bhagavatam, that Ashvatthama, he's similarly disfigured as a form of humiliation. So it's the same thing with Rukmini. Krishna takes him and takes his sword and cuts off his hair and his mustache, etc. And basically humiliates him, causes him to break his vow so that he can never return to Kundina. Right? And then Krishna, of course, takes Rukmini back to Dwarka. Okay? So, Jai Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish ki. Jai Rukmini Devi ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.